Remember when you were a kid and you're playing with your older brother or older kids in the neighborhood and they were acting reckless and inevitably you got hurt? Immediately, what did they all do? They said, oh, don't tell mom, we can work this out, or hey, could we buy you a candy bar, or hey, maybe I let you punch me in return. They're all just trying to get you not to go to the one person who can solve your problem. That's what forced arbitration is. Forced arbitration is a part of each one of your lives, even if you've never even heard about it. And today, we're gonna talk about what it is, why it's so terrible, and what you can do to change it. Forced arbitration is a technique used by companies to remove your right to take them to court. They put wording in a contract that basically says that if something terrible happens, instead of taking us to court, you have to use something called arbitration. Instead of getting a neutral judge, you get an arbiter that the company has hired. Instead of getting a jury, you actually don't get a jury at all. The arbiter makes all the decisions. Instead of using the rules that apply to every case all across the state or all across the country, you have to follow the rules that the company decides apply to arbitration. And instead of sharing the legal fees, you oftentimes have to pay all of the legal fees in an arbitration. Essentially, forced arbitration swaps out our entire judicial system for a private backroom process where they control the rules in an attempt to avoid all public responsibility. And before you say to yourself that this doesn't apply to you and move on to the next video, I can almost guarantee you that as you're watching this, you're bound by multiple forced arbitration agreements that you don't even know about. It's in contracts with bank accounts and cell phone companies, companies that you work for, businesses that you're buying things from, or apps that you're downloading on your phone, nursing homes for your parents or your grandparents, and summer camps for your kids. So let's look at an example. Here's Massage Envy's actual forced arbitration clause, and you'll notice it takes up multiple pages. A couple things to highlight. It points out that they get to pick the neutral arbiter and that you don't get a judge or jury. It also points out that the entire arbitration process is confidential, strictly confidential, which means that you can't even tell people you're going to arbitration or even what happened to you. It also includes a class action waiver, which means that if a lot of other people have the same dispute with Massage Envy, you agree not to join them in that lawsuit. And I know what you may be thinking, like, wow, how, if you ever read this, would you ever agree to it? But the reason is, you don't see it. When you check into a Massage Envy, they hand you an iPad, and you have to scroll through 3 or 4 pages of terms, and at the very bottom of it, they ask you to check a box and sign so that you can go into your massage. What they don't tell you is that box that you're checking, where it says terms and use agreement, that's actually a hyperlink. It redirects you to a different website that has a different contract that actually includes the forced arbitration clause. In 2017, a BuzzFeed report came out that over 180 women had reported sexual assaults happening at Massage Envy. These are cases that my law firm's actually working on, where we're representing women who've been sexually assaulted at Massage Envies across the country who are being forced into arbitration based on an agreement they've never even seen or heard of. One of the most difficult conversations to have with a client is explaining to them that the very company, the very people that have caused them harm and abused them are the individuals that get to control the outcome of their pursuit of justice. It defies common sense. It defies the simple terms of fairness. Gratefully, this absurdity has been recognized by some of our lawmakers. And recently, a law has been passed that bans forced arbitration in cases involving sexual misconduct. Now, that law likely applies to anything that happens in the future, but it may not apply to all the individuals who have already been sexually assaulted, whether at Massage Envy or anywhere else. Brian Flores is a former Miami Dolphins head coach who, in February of this year, filed a racial discrimination class action lawsuit against the NFL and several of its teams. Whether or not his case has any merit, The NFL is trying to tell him that he can't even bring the lawsuit because he signed a forced arbitration clause in his employment agreement. Remember, this is a high-powered head coach in the NFL making millions of dollars with lawyers looking over his shoulder with every single move he makes, and this still happened to him. It's not just cell phone contracts or nursing homes or massage envy or your app agreements. It's everywhere. And if it can happen to him, it can happen to you. So if it isn't abundantly obvious to you right now that forced arbitration is a terrible thing, let me pile it on. The 7th Amendment of the United States Constitution is supposed to protect all of our rights to a civil trial by jury. Imagine if a company, your employer, in its contract with you attempted to say that you lost your right to free speech or your right to bear arms and to own guns. People would be losing their absolute minds. And yet people seem okay with losing their 7th Amendment right to a trial by jury. Why is that? That's the whole point of this video, is that I think that people are okay with it because they don't know that they're losing it. They don't know that this is happening to them every single day. And I hope now that you do. All right, so what can you do about all this? You're not gonna be able to catch every forced arbitration clause in every terms of use agreement that you sign from here for the rest of your life. It's just not gonna happen. And so the most effective way, the only way that we're all gonna get out from underneath these forced arbitration clauses is changing the laws themselves. Right now, there's a bill in Congress called the Forced Arbitration Injustice Repeal Act. They call it the FAIR Act. And that FAIR Act is gonna be coming up for vote in both the House and hopefully the Senate. And what you can do is write your congressman, write your senator, and tell them that you support the FAIR Act. Contact anyone you may know who may have some influence in Congress and tell them that this is a law that benefits you and you want it passed because it does. The only people that benefit from this law aren't actually people. They're companies. They're corporations without faces. And the only people that it hurts are people just like you and me. If you want to learn more, visit the good folks at American Association for Justice who are doing great work in this area at justice.org, and the link will be in the description. And of course, if you have questions, leave them in the comments. If you have anything you want to bring up to me personally, you can message me here or on my social media pages. And as always, thanks for spending your lunch break with me today.